Welcome back, and we're still on the Iran-Israel crisis, and we're going to be looking at the implications on global economy and peace. And right here in the studio, we have Dr. Augustine Okolie. He's a public affairs analyst. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Welcome, viewers.
All right. Now, already the US has called for a ceasefire, but we're still hearing of situations where the attacks are still going on between Iran and Israel. So first of all, how would you describe what do you think of America's role in all of this? And what do you also think of Iran and Israel's failure to adhere to the ceasefire?
Well, I can say this morning they have adhered to the ceasefire. I think we can call it temporary, but it's stable. I will also want to say that the situation in the Middle East is a long-drawn battle that is coming on. As far back as even when we have the Cold War of Soviet Union and America. This fear of attacks, this fear of people trying to obliterate Israel and wipe out Israel from the map, like they used to threaten. That is why Israelis are obsessed with Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. Even then, you can see the alliances. This Iran having been attacking Israel through proxies of Hezbollah and this Gaza, what's going on in Gaza, the Hamas and other terrorist organizations. So Israel, being the number one ally of America, always are on their toes to make sure that Iran does not acquire nuclear weapons. And from what we can see, that that threat is real, that if they acquire nuclear weapons, they will tend to use it, even though people acquire it as a deterrent. Most countries that acquire the nuclear capabilities do that to avoid attacks like North Korea and so on. But the situation of the role of America, like us, America is also mediating and also fighting, because I saw them drop some heavy bombs to burst the bunker that is underground where the Iranian people kept their nuclear facilities, some several meters below the ground, the Rocky Mountains. But they still found, they developed that bomb for the purpose of, they call it bunker busting bomb. And Israel has not got it. So when the threat was imminent, according to the Israeli foreign minister, was saying that, look, these people have gotten to the point of nuclear enrichment to the point of almost 80%, that will give them nuclear capabilities of acquiring nuclear bombs and using them. And the purpose of acquiring that nuclear facility is because of Israel. So Israel is always threatening and always fighting. But in the past, America have not allowed Israel to attack Iran, because it could escalate the war and widen the scope of the war in Middle East and the stability of Middle East. But these days, you can see that most of the people fighting Israel before are now Israeli friends, like Egypt, like Qatar, like Saudi Arabia. They have all normalized relations with Israel because they also are, not so comfortable with Iranian people and their, terrorist activities, even though they do most of those things using proxies, like these advanced terrorist organizations. So the situation is that America cannot allow only Israel. They have also been itching to destroy this nuclear capability that Iranian people want to acquire. Remember in those days, in the 80s, when we have, they try to develop the nuclear capability, the ability to, destroy these missiles, the SDI, that's Strategic Defense Initiative by Ronald Reagan. That was far back as 1983. So they have always been wary of Iran and most of the terrorist organizations that they are affiliated or associated with them. So others can have that nuclear capabilities, but they may not want to use it. But everybody is afraid and wary that if they allow Iran to acquire it, even if they don't use it directly, they can use it through their proxies. So that is why Israel, on the 13th of June 2025, went to try to attack all the facilities, the scientists, the nuclear scientists, the experts that have helped them and enabled them to get to that point that they are. But that is not enough. They knew that most of their facilities are underground. America came to their rescue. And there is a debate now whether that strike, triple strike at those facilities, at those sites, whether they've actually nailed or obliterated the capacity, like the American president said. But CIA intelligence came back to say that it didn't do much. It can only set Iran back by like months. But recently, maybe yesterday and today, we are getting a different story, that it did a very severe damage that will take years. They'll take Iran years to recover and come to the point they were before the 13th of June.
All right, and also, we've also found out that in Tehran has already voted to suspend cooperation with the IAEA, and is also threatening withdrawal from the NPT. So now, are we seeing a tipping point, when it comes to nuclear arms in the Middle East, especially if Iran exits NPT?
Well, even the IAEA cooperation was not total. They were not given the right information where they are and what they are doing. Remember this doctrine of Obrima Fide. Obrima Fide is utmost good faith. Full disclosure, when you are having arrangements or contract or agreement, you will tell your partner, you will tell your client, you will tell the other party that this is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So the cooperation with the International Energy Agency, like you said, was not fully observed. And that is why they got to this point whereby everybody becomes worried about where they are and their capacity and their threat to Israeli nation that Israel came to be in 1948, that they will send them back to where they are coming from. So, and Israel is also powerful, but is a country at the midst of enemies. If you see Israel's position in the map, you see that around them, from Syria to Egypt, to Saudi Arabia, to Oman, to all the Arab nations, they are just sitting at the middle. And even within the point they are also fighting with the Palestinians. So you can see the issue of Gaza. And all the Palestinians are doing with the help and aid of Iran. That is why even the northern part of Israel or the southern Lebanon, you can see Hezbollah trying to throw bombs and missiles. And those missiles are sophisticated missiles that can get Israel, they're just shouting distance. So Israel feels that if they bring down Iran or if they substantially, incapacitate them, then they will now feel free. Otherwise, they are perpetually under threat. So I can tell you now that it is a fragile peace that they have declared. America is trying to be a mediator and also a participant in the war. So you can see the hypocrisy of Western countries. Otherwise, what has happened in Israel, talking about Gaza, is issue of Hamas coming to Israel on July 7th. And from there, Israel said they are no longer going to observe two nations, two countries under one nation. That is 2-in-1 that people are proposing so that both of them can live side by side and cohabit and have a nation, but each one have their own autonomy. But today, you can see that Israel is bent on sending them packing from there. And to the point of even crossing the red lines, that people were even shouting and forgetting that who was the first aggressor. And to that point, America was monitoring and watching. And today, you can see President Trump has become the #1 ally of Israel, unlike the previous administrations who were circumspect in their support of Israel. So today, Israel have the greatest ally in America. When Iran started raining bombs, succeeded in raining bombs in Israel, even though most of the missiles were intercepted. When America saw it, America intervened and started bombing Iran. At the point, they also declared ceasefire. And the ceasefire they declared, I'm sure that they must have discussed with the Iranians. Iranians are not comfortable with that war. If you ask them, they wouldn't want to go to war at this point in time. And Israel were no longer comfortable, even though they are determined to make sure that they obliterate all the threats within and without the Israeli territories. So that is how it is. The only thing that will bring, normalcy, stability, and peace there is Iran to come down from their high horse. Remember, this regime came, communist regime came in 1979 through a revolution that overthrew the Shah of Iran. Iran used to be a very good friend of Israelis and even Americans. During the time that we were observing democracy, they were close until these revolutionists, until they came up with that revolution of 1979 that brought the man here now. At a point now, it was whether they want to take out the man and bring peace, total peace, or whether they should allow him what is going to be the collateral damage to relations, to stability, and to cohesion within the Middle East.
Now, still on the Middle East, do you think that this conflict is likely to, spark some form of prolonged proxy war, particularly when it involves, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syria, or Yemen? What exactly are the risks?
Well, I can see Iranian celebrating because the first time they've hit Israel is now. But Israel, I think, from my assessment, is the victor of the 12-day war and the one they have with Gaza. I don't think if they start negotiation using diplomacy, whether they have anything adverse again. I think they have come to the point that have totally, decimated Iran. Even the scientists, the experts were killed, targeted, and killed in Iranian territories. And to the point that the community man, the strong man, have to go underground and could not, communicate with the people to the point that they were saying they want to take him out. It was America that said, don't take him out yet, because you don't know what happened. Remember what happened in Libya. Taking out Muammar Gaddafi brought about, the severity of terrorism all over the world, ISIS, and all these, multiple, even the Boko Haram in Nigeria. These are offshoots of that decimation of Libya. And Syria, you can also see what happened in Syria. So what they want, according to them, is not regime change, but for them to reduce their capacity and their capability in the nuclear, in the war. Remember, this is a race, and they call it war race, bringing down war armament. They have some, treaties they've entered. Even though when Trump came, I think it's now that they're recognizing the possibility and the need for NATO, that is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Initially, he said they don't want any multilateral organization. They only want bilateral relationship, America first. But I think after yesterday's meeting, Trump can see that he's working on a keg of gunpowder. By the way, his foreign policy was zero as far as the Western countries are concerned. In fact, he have even enabled Europe, the euro, to come together in defense of, you see what is going on? They are multifaceted. The issue of Ukraine and the issue of Russia. And Russia cannot come to their aid because already they are fighting a war that they can't win. They invaded Ukraine. They couldn't successfully overthrow the government. They couldn't successfully take over Ukraine as they planned. Remember, Ukraine is the second largest in Europe apart from Russia. So what is going on now is that after the war, they now go into the table to redraw their lines and to negotiate for peace. Israel is now in a strong position to negotiate because they have, taken out what they want to take out. What they are doing now is post-war assessment and evaluation of the damage they have done. Whether they know the damage they have done is enough to bring Iranians to the table. I think Iranians are also calling for negotiation now because they have been inflicted enough damage that they cannot do much in terms of wiping Israel out of the map. And America, with Donald Trump, have had a good ally in accomplishing that feat. As far as I'm concerned, there are propaganda and so on, but the truth is that Israel have, come to the point of they succeeded in the mission.
What about, the Arab leagues and the other Middle East?
They have abandoned, remember, Iranians are not Arabs. They have abandoned these Gaza people. Israel have been decimating them and nobody said anything because Israel has diplomatically engaged almost all of them. They are now happy and friendly with Qatar, who are the major funders of those, apart from Iran. They are in good cohorts with Saudi Arabia. Israel is also with Egypt. They remember the Camp David Accord and so on. They also, even Oman, most of them are now friendly with Israel, apart from these pockets of resistance coming from Iran using their proxies like Hezbollah and so on. Yeah. So that is why nothing happened. Israel was tactical. This is the best time for them to do what they did. Ordinarily before, America wouldn't allow them because it will trigger off, a kind of general, instability in the Middle East. But you can see that nobody is even complaining from among the Arab because Iran too is a threat to they are looking for who is the major power. So others don't want Iran to take that because they might go on for acquisition of territories. So you can see that America, for them to call for, it was the America that called for truce. Yeah. So they know why they have achieved their aims, and therefore let us go back to the table. And these people have gotten enough damages, and they have actually been brought out from their high horse, and it is time to go and Georgia, no more war.
Yeah, so now looking at the way the conflict panned out, what does it reveal about the weaknesses in current international and global peacekeeping architecture, like the UN Security Council?
Well, you see, like I said earlier, that Trump is beginning to realize the importance of the earlier existing foreign policies, particularly in the Western world, recognition of the multilateral organizations. He came, he said America first. He don't want all this multilateral. He doesn't want United Nations. He doesn't want World Health. He doesn't want NATO. He doesn't want anybody. He wants to stand alone because he's powerful. But I think he has been able to realize now that he can't go it alone. So I'm sure that if Donald Trump have come down to realization that there is need for alliances, there is need for cooperation, there's need for collaboration with other nations. Like he said, I will go all the way with NATO. He has not been saying that before. I think he has realized that he can't go in the world, the stability of the global village now. They have to have alliances because the Warsaw Pact has collapsed. Remember, during the Cold War, we had Warsaw Pact and NATO as the two major powers. America is singularly the superpower now. You can say Russia is no longer talking. Even attacking one small country, the neighbor, they could not even succeed in overrunning. If that's why they want to cover most of those countries, like Poland is at a threat, Ukraine is at a threat, and other smaller countries around are afraid that if they succeed in overcoming Ukraine, they will call for them in the territorial ambition. So that is why they are happy that they didn't succeed. And Europe are now more compact. They are now more close and working together than ever before. And that is good. And Trump will now see the need why he should cooperate with Europe, why he should cooperate with the other foreign Western allies, instead of going it alone and saying he only wants bilateral relations, he doesn't want multilateral relations. I think this is, when you do some war, you come back to peace. You have to win the war, but have you won the peace? So that is the question. So if they want to win the peace, they will go to the table and discuss it.
Yes. Now let's look at alliances. Now, how do you think this war can redefine alliances, particularly looking at the growing proximity between Iran and powers like China and Russia?
Well, you can see China, because of economy. Remember, this war is not only war of arms. There is war of tariff. There is war of economic, what they call the tariff war, and China is almost overtaking America in the economic sphere and technology. But their position is reversible. If America begins to work against China, in the next few years, China will go back to where they're coming from. China is prosperous now, but they don't even need war. The issue of Taiwan that is within the Chinese territory, that are proclaiming independence and autonomy. The world wants Taiwan as a country at the United Nations. But China is saying that they are not a different country. They are part of China. And China are itching to attack, just like Russia attacked Ukraine, to attack and take over. But they knew that America will not allow them. America and United Kingdom and other Western allies, that is part of them. And they don't want them to take over Taiwan. And Taiwan is recognized by the United Nations as a country, and China is saying they are not an independent country. So China cannot proactively go for war and attack America or retaliate. Or you can say Russia could not do that. And you can check the distances. It is a long distance coming from China. they have to develop enormous armament that will travel from China to go to the Americas or Europe. And secondly, China needs them to rebuild the economy. China is interested in building the economy. They're not interested in such wars. They want cooperation, but America is trying to muzzle them, to dictate for them. At a point, Jinping, the prime minister, was now telling America they are now ready for tariff war. They are ready for any war, but they don't want war. But they cannot run away from being China. So that is a sovereign country. But you can see that if they enter into all this economic war and all this armament, China will suffer a very big setback. China don't need war, and China have done. That's why nobody have made, even at the Ukraine issue, they can only do that secretly. They cannot come open and supply arms. They cannot come open. Even when Iran run into trouble, what is it called? Russia, they have to need Iran to help them. Now that Iran is on their knees, you can see that it will bring a kind of stability. It will bring a kind of decorum. And people will now begin to listen to talking, because when you think you are strong, you forget dialogue. But today, I think they will now use dialogue. The problem is Trump. For me, Donald Trump is the one who came up with all these issues. It is Donald Trump that triggered all this. It's Donald Trump that is supporting Israel. Israel wouldn't have attacked Iran without his tacit support. Israel wouldn't have gone all that way in what's going on in Gaza if not for the type of support, the military, economy, the money they give to them every year. So it is Donald Trump policy that has failed. I think he'll go back to the drawing board and come back with a new foreign policy that will not be saying America alone or America first. You will know about the existing bilateral relations America had with other countries, with other groups. You see, they have cancelled most of the relationship and agreements, and both NAFTA, both, multi-dimensional,
so
economic.
are you saying that there is some form of insincerity in Americans' involvement, considering that they instigated the war and at the same time they're also calling for...
Yes, using the word insincerity is just begging the question. He is the, the fomenter of the trouble. He is the enabler of this war. He is the supporter of Israel. Israel wouldn't have gone to war if the former president of America is still there. Because immediately this man came, Donald Trump, for the second time, you can see that he caused a lot of trouble, both in economic space, in the defense, and he's now forcing them. The only achievement Trump can boast of today is because at the NATO level, he was insisting that they contribute up to 5% in their defense preparation, in their defense budgets. And they have been reneging because people want to build the economy before they talk about defense. The world is largely free of war and so on. But they have now agreed that everybody should come up to the table with 5% of defense budgets. And I think that is the major achievement within all what has happened, because they have seen that they are vulnerable, that Russia can attack them. They're close to Russia. China can attack them. And America, if America is not there, they will go up in flames. So they need each other. Just like this global village, everybody needs each other. But it cannot go it alone. We now have a singularly supreme power, not the two superpowers that we used to have, Soviet Union and America, or the NATO and the Warsaw Pact allies.
Okay, now let's look at the impact of this war on global economy. Now already we've seen fluctuations in global markets, particularly in oil prices. Iran is threatening to close down the Strait of Hormuz. So now, how would you say that this war has affected, global oil supply?
Well, apart from oil, our dear sister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the World Trade Organization DG, have also cried that it is affecting global trade, international trade, and so on. Now, I'm talking about oil. Oil, particularly when we talk about OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, that is the hub. That's Middle East, where you have Iran, Iraq, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and almost everybody, apart from Egypt, is not a contributor to the table of oil industry. And where there is war, there will be blockade, both air and ground and sea movement. Apart from that, straits and the channels within the waters where people travel. And when there is war, nobody will risk going to carry his ship, either tanker or oil or whatever goods. So actually it affected the global trade, and you can see the market has responded. Immediately, even they take this ceasefire, the oil price immediately yesterday, came down. You can see, I've not gone through the website this morning to see what has happened actually, but I know that it will be green all the way. It is no longer going to be bullish, and it is no longer going to be adversely affecting the global oil market. But what has happened earlier, the past 12 days, that is of 13th June to 25th June, the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, is actually hampered the oil movement, the oil trade, the oil market, and you can see that even our own oil in Nigeria, even when we are supposed to benefit, but we are not benefiting from this, what is going on in the Middle East because of our own bad policies, because of our own bad planning, because of our leadership here. Remember in the 80s, during the first Gulf War, 1980 to 1988, when they have this, that was going to have slush funds. We had so much money because now the price of oil will go up and we benefit from that. But you can see that our economy has been run aground, that we are not even benefiting. Nigeria, who is supposed to benefit from this war because it will help trigger the price of oil in the international market and will be a major beneficiary. We cannot boast of benefiting anything. Rather, we are now following global trend that if price of oil go up there, we will now also go up with it, and we buy what they buy in the market, and nobody will tell us. You can see opaque way they are running our oil industry and the receipts and accounts. So that is a matter for another day. But for today, I think the market has responded to what is going on in the Middle East. And immediately they get a ceasefire, or they got a ceasefire, they also responded. The price of oil came down, and normalcy. I think it is still subsisting, like I said, that they are no longer brickbats, there's no throwing of bombs, missiles, and drones. It is everybody will benefit from peace.
All right, but in the situation whereby the ceasefire collapses and Iran actually makes good on the threat to close the strait, so what would be the implications?
Well, that is what we call the highest point, what we call there's a situation where if it goes worse. But I can tell you from what I read, is when two people are fighting, they fight to the point that even you just touch one of them, they will just follow you and say the fight is over. But when they have not exhausted and have not tested their opponent, they will be, struggling and firing from all cylinders. But today, each person have seen the vulnerability of continuing the war. Iran have seen the vulnerability and adverse effects, long-term and short-term effects you have both in their community and in their economy. And nobody wants it. Now, America too have seen that even though they are the master or superpower or whatever, that they will suffer because if they have problem in oil industry, what will fuel and fire their economy will be affected. And Israel have also seen that they might bite more than they can chew. They might defeat Iran, but at a heavy cost. So it is the cost of the war that they will now go to the table and do trial balance, do profit and loss account of the war. So I think that both of them will not continue, it will not collapse because it's just like inflicted injury. There's no other person that will come and stop the war. That is why when two big people are fighting, the grass will suffer. And when two big people are fighting, they will see a point and nobody will come to separate them. So they have separated themselves. That's why America, who is also a participant, called for war or called for ceasefire, and everybody obeyed. But even though, like I said earlier, Iran has suffered a huge loss, a huge damage, a huge injury. Israel have inflicted huge injury. And remember, they will still go on for the next 1 month to assess and evaluate the damages. It's not a spontaneous thing because these nuclear facilities, all we are praying is that they do not trigger off, the nuclear bomb if there's one, because it will spread all over and even across the boundaries. So they know that if the bomb is dropped there, it will not limit themselves in Iran or in Israel, that even the neighbors, and that one, they can't stop it. It goes through the air. So we are praying that they do not escalate the war. We are praying, I think the world is praying that the war comes to an end. Peace is better than war.
Yes. Now, looking at the ripple effect this conflict had on Nigeria already, because like you mentioned earlier, the prices of fuel, increased, and now it's stable now. So, what do you think that non-allied African countries like Nigeria can do in the event of conflicts and wars like this, so that whatever is going on over there will not affect them so largely when it comes to...
Well, there is a little country called Switzerland. Let me give you an example. There's a small country called Switzerland. They're one of the most prosperous countries in the world. They are a non-aligned country. Even the First World War, the Second World War, they have decided to dissociate themselves from partaking or having anything to do with the warring countries. They are good for it. What do you do as a country, like you say, what happens to Nigeria, is to have a good government, to govern well, to plan very, very well, to bring their people to the fore, to make Nigeria first. Because that is the first thing. Apart from these rogue people that are coming to government and stealing Nigeria blind and wasting our resources and also borrowing money anyhow, those things are not good. If you govern your country well, it is easier to stay out of trouble and also prepare yourself, because you have your own defense initiative that people will not look for trouble for you. But if you are weak, among the strong, nobody can afford to be weak. So Nigeria have to also be prepared. But you can see we are still struggling with our internal challenges of insecurity here and there. A country that is suffering this kind of insecurity cannot even withstand war 1 year. You have to have a firm grip of your economy, a firm grip of your defense, both internal and external, so that you can ward off. If you are strong, people will not attack you. But if you are not strong, people can now take advantage of your weakness and even send little terrorists to harass you, like what is currently going on. If Nigeria is strong enough, as they have the capacity and capability to be strong in the world, in the global world, then nobody, even these people, will not come in. If they come in, they'll be crushed. But because of internal sabotage, religious and ethnic sentiments, and all the way the country is governed, there are so many ungoverned spaces, they don't care when somebody dies. You saw the other time that when America was kidnapped in Niger, America sent aircraft who came and picked the man in Nigerian forest, because the terrorists have already entered Nigerian territory. America discovered that, even with some cooperation with Nigerian government, picked that single citizen. That's what gives patriotism. That's what enables patriotism. When you call me somebody, I'll call you somebody. But when you say I'm nothing, then you are also nothing. So that is what's going on in Nigeria. If they begin to treat their citizens very, very well, then citizens will become patriotic. It's not forced. It's not legislated. Patriotism is not gotten from force. It is the relationship, and it is their internal domestic relationship that you export as their foreign policy. So when you don't have internal good governance, then you have a zero foreign policy. All the other ones are just gimmicks, rhetorics, and propaganda.
Yes. And just finally, before we go, do you think that economic cooperation can, become some sort of foundation for peace building in the Middle East?
Well, yes. When they go to table now, we know they will negotiate. We now see the direction and the dimension of the negotiations. First of all, if Trump will do the right thing as the senior person or the senior partner in the business, he will first of all have to draw back Israel. Israel is trying to protect their integrity and being obliterated, like they have always been telling them that will wipe you out. When you see one person, like somebody called the Southeast, the dot in a circle, Israel is like a dot in a huge circle in Middle East. So they don't sleep at all. So that is why I don't blame them. Because when somebody is constantly under threat and surrounded by enemies, very virulent terrorists, all of them are coming from the Middle East. And they use this religion and ethnic something. And I wonder why some people are hiding under the bunkers. When they say if you die, you go to heaven. They send people to go and commit suicide. They send people to go and commit suicide. They send people to go to war. But they are afraid of their life. They have all run to Dubai. But now you see Dubai also come under threat, because Iran says if anybody allows his airspace to be used to attack Iran, is a legitimate war. Is a legitimate person to be attacked too. So even Dubai, all of them closed their airspace, and nobody was entering Dubai as the past 1 week. Nobody entering Qatar. Nobody is entering Bahrain. All those contiguous countries around the Middle East, they also suffered. When they say airspace covered, no aircraft flies there. Nobody lives there. And some people are even stranded. You cannot even go there to pick up anybody. So I think the situation was dire, and everybody have to. That's why we have international relations, cooperations, and so on. So there is need for cooperation. There is need for dialogue. There is need for blocks, for negotiations. You can see that they have woken up the NATO members. They've also woken up European members that America can abandon them in time of need. So the countries like Germany, Spain, Italy, and so on, those countries that have technology, some of them are even the superpowers. There are 5 who have capability. That capability is to enable them, people not to attack them. That is what Iran wants to get. Because when they get it, they say if you attack them, they will throw their nuclear bomb. So, and then Israel is making sure they don't get. Israel has nuclear capability, but they know that they can hold themselves, like a responsible nation, instead of throwing the bomb. But if it is Iran that has nuclear bomb, Israel is afraid. They might use it on them. So that is the irony of it. But the truth is that the world is full of deceit. These advanced Western countries cannot be telling us the whole truth. They will close your eyes and be stealing from you. You can see all these pockets of insurrections here and there. Their hands are there, using their intelligence, CIA, Mossad, and so on. So that's why I'm saying that in the world of the strong, no country can afford to be weak.
Yes, that is very true. Thank you so much, Dr. Augustine Okolie, for your time.
It's always my pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. All right, and that is it on our conversation on the Iran-Israel crisis and the implications on global economy and peace. We'll go on a short break and we'll be right back in a moment.
Signature TV. News in your pocket.